Welcome to a Community Partners interview where we explore the organizations, opportunities, and resources that look to make change in our daily lives. I'm your host, Sean Pickard, and you're listening to Voices for Ability Radio, all abilities, all the time. Today, I'm joined by Heather Lacey, the Executive Director for Able2. Able2 is a charitable organization that empowers individuals with disabilities to lead fulfilling lives by supporting them with programs, services, and resources. People with disabilities face many barriers to their full participation in society. They can include stigma, discrimination, poverty, exclusion from employment, and inequities in the education, healthcare, and legal system. They work with partners to provide the tools, choices, and connections that empower people with disabilities to build lives of meaning and joy. Able2 believes in an inclusive community where all people are seen as able, important, and valued. Thank you for joining us today, Heather. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's good to have you here. I really want to learn a little bit more about Able2 and the different things you do there. But before we get going too far down that road, Heather, tell us more about the Heather Lacey experience. What inspired you to work at Able2? Why work with individuals with disabilities?
So I actually, I have my son is an adult, but he is a person who has a disability. So I had exposure to that. Just personal exposure very early on when we were trying to find services. My son was diagnosed with autism. So as you know, 30 and 40 years ago, that there wasn't a lot available. So that kind of got me into the field. I also grew up with a family member with a disability, and he lived with us as well. So and I saw my grandmother ensure that my uncle was able to work, learned how to bank and manage his own money. So at a time when it was, the recommendation was to put people with disabilities in an institution, my grandmother didn't do that, and she made the decision to have my uncle live at home, and she helped my uncle to ensure that he had a valuable and meaningful life, that it had some meaning for him. So I kind of started out that way, and I've actually been all over Canada doing work with not only individuals with disabilities, but children and youth as well, who are also in the child protection area. So it's kind of come full circle. I started out with working with kids with disabilities, kind of moved off and had some experiences in the child welfare sector, and then moved back. I was looking to come back to Ottawa, and so I'm pretty lucky that I found Able2. Wasn't really sure what I was going to do after I finished working in Edmonton, and saw the ad for Able2 for their executive director position, and felt that was the job that was for me. And I ended up getting it. And I've been here this will be 7 years in August, and I love the job. I can't think of anything else that I'd rather be doing. I think the impact that we have in the community and with the people that we serve is, it really is something to be proud of. So I know that's kind of in a nutshell how I got here.
That's an excellent story there, Heather. I mean, the fact that you grew up with family members and turned it into a career, you saw the need early on in life, and it's almost a calling for you, I would say.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it really does inspire you to ensure that all people are seen as valued, right? We all bring value to our community, to society. The struggle that people have, you need to meet people where they are, and you need to be able to be flexible and adaptable. And I think, in my career, I have been pretty flexible and adaptable, moving from, different places. I lived overseas for a few years as well. That really does instill that ability to be resourceful and adaptable and flexible. I think if the pandemic taught us anything as well, it is about how deep, loneliness can be and how that can impact your mental health. And, for people with disabilities, how distressing and how impactful it is not to have those like support systems and friends in your life, people that aren't really paid to be there with you, but want to be there out of a desire to be a friend and to be a connection that you can depend on. So, yeah.
Yes, that's very, very important. And here's the fun thing is I know an organization like Able2, they've got many different programs and services. It goes back to what you were saying, right? You have to meet the person where they are, have that little bit of flexibility for them. So let's talk about some of those programs and services that are offered by Able2. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so Able2 has actually been in the community of Ottawa for a little over 50 years. We started out with a program called Matching. So what it actually does is it matches an individual with a disability, so we would call them a friend. We match them with a volunteer called an ally. And basically, it's an intentional match based on the person's, each person's interests and location. And we intentionally match them to then, see that it develops into a intentional friendship that can exist outside of the organization. So that program, currently we have 150 matches supported by 150 volunteers. I have 150 people on the wait list at this point as well. So that program is incredibly impactful. People talk about the feeling that they have, like these allies. Not only the allies get something, the friends get something. I mean, they're like family. They've gone to weddings and christenings, and so they really do function as real lifelong friends. We've had matches that have lasted over 30 years, and so that's probably one of the most successful and impactful programs that we have at Able2. We also have what we call the Adult Protective Service Worker Program. That supports individuals with developmental disabilities who want to move into homes of their own, which, can be extremely challenging. It's challenging just to find a place to live that you can afford and that's accessible, but also then to build the supports that are needed for that individual to live independently. We have the Fetal Alcohol Resource Program. That's for children and youth who may have a diagnosis of the fetal alcohol syndrome disorder. So that's been going on since 2018, and we work in partnership with our local children's hospital to deliver that program. We also have a funding brokerage where we assist people with disabilities who receive money from government sources. We help them to manage those funds. As you know, most people with a disability can be on a fixed income, and some of the programs the government offers requires you to spend the money first and then get the money back. So we support those individuals by spending the money for them, and then we get reimbursed for it, so that it's not money they have to spend, right? So that's been extremely helpful and impactful for the community, so that they can fully utilize the funds they receive. Just recently, we acquired Reach Canada. We integrated with them, and we now offer a legal referral service program. So if you're an individual with a disability that becomes involved with the legal system, you can make a self-referral and you can talk to one of our university law students. And once they get your information, they can refer you to one of the 200 lawyers, mediators, and paralegals on our roster for 3 hours of free legal services. And then we offer a Grow educational series. So we'll put on some educational programs for people with disabilities and their families or caregivers to attend. And often they're about current trends or current issues within the disability sector. So that's kind of the range of programs that we offer.
That is an awful lot of things going on at Able2 there, Heather. I mean, we're talking the Allies program, which sounds really, really good. You got 150 groups going and 150 on the waiting list. So Happy and sad at the same time on that one, shall we say? The protective services. I like the legal program. That one really stood out to me. I mean, you got so much going on here, Heather. How do you keep people informed? You must have a newsletter or something like that. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, we do. We have a newsletter that goes out every month. I also blog as well every month on what's current and what's happening at Able2. Of course, our website is pretty active as well. We have a huge social media presence. So we're on Facebook. We just recently got onto TikTok. We're on LinkedIn. So we try to reach our community in a lot of different ways. Oftentimes, anything special that we have going on, we have a huge email list that we ensure people are sent those special communications as well. But yeah, our newsletter is great. Yeah, so it goes out once a month. It's pretty active. We let you know what's current, what's coming up. Yeah. And you can sign up for our newsletter on our website.
That's good to know. I might have to go and do that because I got to be honest with you, Heather. You talk about all the programs you have on the go there, and the newsletter goes out every month. I'm honestly seeing like one of those old school press rooms in the back of my mind, you know, the newsrooms, everybody yelling and screaming, trying to get stories in. So, wow, that's a lot. Now, in regards to the newsletter, I'm sure one of the things that you came in there, and we talked about this briefly earlier. You were talking about the kitchen Kaylee that you had. I believe it's called an evening in the Maritimes. What is an evening in the Maritimes? What's it for? Let's talk.
Yeah, so it was a gala that was started. Well, it will be 30 years in 2026. So it was started many years ago, and it was actually a way to raise money for the organization. But it was also it was we wanted to build it as a unique event, right? So one of the founders of the event had been down east and kind of got the idea when he and his wife were traveling down east. And so the very first gala actually was done here, I believe in Lansdowne Park. They had, I believe, 1,000 people. They paid $75 each, and people came in. They had some auction items. They bid on that. I believe the first one was like a buffet. They raised, I think, about $75,000 for that. And then it just started to change and grow. And so this year, so I'm not sure when it actually changed to more of a sit down formal dinner type of thing, but yeah, now it's a formal dinner. This year we had close to 500 people attend. We raised $320,000, and we had a silent auction and a live auction. We serve lobster that we bring in fresh from down east, and we focus on everything down east. So it's a real kitchen party. It's like we have fiddler, we have bagpipers, and yeah, it's incredible. It's very unique, and people look forward to it every year. We have a lot of corporate representation, and we get it's hosted by Patricia Bowles, who's our local anchor for the 6 o'clock news here in Ottawa. So yeah, it's growing quite a bit. So, but next year will be a big celebration because we will be celebrating 30 years of this event. So yeah.
Sounds like it's going to be a great event next year. I might have to see if I can get myself a ticket there, Heather. You never know. But let's get into people becoming members of Able2, right? I'm sure there's a lot of people have a lot of questions about a lot of different things. But let's talk about what's involved. Are there any restrictions? Does age matter? You have to have a caregiver, no family. Let's talk about any restrictions, if there are any.
So basically, we provide services to people with disabilities across all disability sectors. There is no age limit per se, but technically we don't have many children or youth within our service. We do focus on children and youth for our FASD program, but other than that, generally trends to people 18 and over. But there isn't really a restriction. And then as well, you can self-refer, a caregiver can refer. anybody, so say for example, you might be somebody who has staff that think you might benefit, the staff person can refer. So there's no restriction on referral either. So yeah, we're pretty open.
That's good to know. So there's a lot of people can find a good way to get some help relatively easily. And with that being the case, Heather, I need to, kind of dig back into the memory banks here because I've got to ask you for a success story. Now, don't give away this person's name, no IDs, but talk to me. What happened when someone came through the door, said, I need help? Somebody asked for help. What was put in place?
So basically, usually what people will do is they'll ask for help within a specific program. So obviously, we have so many success stories, but one that I often try to highlight, or one that was just highlighted actually at our match program or at our gala, for example, was the story of how, and I can, and we did, it's pretty public. They were interviewed by Patricia Bowles on the news as well. But for Mark and Daniel, who were matched, and the story of how they were matched, and the feeling that the ally or the volunteer, or sorry, the friend has, that that his ally was a godsend, and he doesn't know what he'd do without him. He's helped him. They have coffee together. They listen to music together. They do so many things. They're going to be meeting each other's families and spending time with their families together. And that's an ongoing match. I also have another story of a match where the individual, the person with a disability, basically hadn't been out of their apartment in years, had severe anxiety about leaving, and their match helped them to actually attend an Ottawa Senators game and stay for the entire game. And if you're somebody that has that severe anxiety, you can't leave your home, that was so successful for that person, right? That match was able to help them to get out of their apartment, to go to a Senators, to an Ottawa Senators game in a crowded arena. That has a lot of impact. And now they go out, they do things every week, and they enjoy being out and having coffee and going to events and the hockey games. So this is the kind of impact that you can have as an ally to someone with a disability.
To be able to get out and spend an evening at an NHL arena with all that, noise, everything going on, that is huge right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they told their story as well in a video that we did. But when you hear, I really do think that it's so impactful. I can tell you the story, right? And you can listen to that and you can kind of say, yeah, that's great. But when you hear an ally and a friend talk about what the impact was for them to be matched, when you get that story directly from them, it really does make you see what the program does, right? Or what our programs can do.
Well, actually, let's talk about that for a second more. Let's focus in a little bit on the Ally program. Where did that come from? How did it start?
It was a movement, I believe, in the early 60s. It didn't really come to Canada until the 70s, but it was based on basically the philosophy, right? The deinstitutionalization and the participating in the community for people with disabilities, right? So when that movement started, people started to talk about what can we do to assist individuals who are now being, where the institutions were no longer, being utilized, and we wanted people out in the community. What do we do? How do we create that sense of belonging for people who haven't hadn't ever had that. And then it just kind of morphed into, what we see today. But yeah, Able2 itself started out as an organization called Citizen Advocacy of Ottawa Carleton, and basically was started by families that were looking for help with how they they would then acclimatize people to living in the community, right? So yeah,
That's a
yeah.
big step right there. And I'm actually kind of amazed that it started that far back, but faced that much resistance to actually get around the world kind of thing.
Well, I think, it as anything, it started in, I believe it started in, more of the Scandinavian countries, right? But with, I believe it was Wolfensberger. But yeah, and I may be mistaken on the name. I should check that out. But yeah, it started out, I believe, kind of as a movement in the 60s, early 70s, but believe it started not in Canada. It was in the Scandinavian countries, and then it was imported into Canada in the 70s, and able or Citizen Advocacy of Ottawa Carleton was started in 74. So, but yeah, I actually I have to say I was shocked as well that it was that early, right? Because it like the community itself, it took it. It's still sometimes you still sometimes see some stigma attached to the area of disabilities, right? And the it takes a lot, right, to educate a community in understanding the value that people bring, right, to our community, regardless of what your other struggles or your challenges might be. So I think there's still a lot of education to do out there. Um, some days I think, gosh, shouldn't we be further ahead?
Well, I mean, social media could play a part in it too, because what goes through my mind is, this started, I believe you said it was the 60s, even in a Scandinavian country, and it took its time to make its way around the world. Yet recently we've had people dumping buckets of ice water on their head because they don't want to pay a couple of bucks. And that's, been a trend in a matter of days. So
Yeah, yeah, but I do think, sometimes look, right now we're seeing a bit of a backlash, right, related to, promoting diversity, inclusion, belonging, accessibility. I really think that, that's been really misinterpreted. I really think that all people deserve to live in a diverse and accepting, accessible community where you can feel like you belong, right? And the fact that we're seeing some of that kind of back, people are backing away from that is worrying, right? I believe, yeah, I had a blog about that a couple months ago, but we're seeing some of that trend, leak into Canada, and some of the bigger corporations. We should be holding people to account, right? No matter where, social media, anywhere we can, right? To ensure and challenge them, ensure that, they are looking at building that diverse and accessible and community where we can all belong, and if they're not, we should be calling people out on that. My last blog was addressing our federal government's choice not to have a ministry specifically dedicated to the representation of people with disabilities. And I think where we see the need, we need to step up, right? It is really our job to advocate and ensure that that people are represented as they need to, and consulted as they need to be.
and that's very important things. Represented and consulted, very important there. But you see, Heather, this whole little conversation that we've just had, this kind of leads to my next question perfectly. So thank you for making my job easy here. What is the one thing that you see happening to individuals with disabilities over and over again today that shouldn't be, and how do we stop it?
Oh gosh, where do I start? Well, first of all, the big thing is really lack of consultation, right? I think that, we go, so here at Able2, we have a community or, a consumer advisory committee And if we're going to make any major changes in the organization or any of the programs, we try to consult with that committee before we make those changes, right? We want people's input because it's important that the services that we offer represent the current need in the community, right? And so I think that's extremely important. So if you then broaden that out, right, governments at all levels should be consulting with people with disabilities, right, about like legislation, things that will impact their direct life, that their lives directly, right? We're not good at that, and we need to get better at that, right? It's basically nothing for us without us, and they need, it's lip service, and it needs to be embedded in everything that we do. So, if we're going to, promote accessibility standards, let's make it people accountable for that. Let's ensure that we've got people on those, committees and within the accountability framework that represent the disability community. So I think that's really something we haven't done well, and we need to do better. I think organizations as well, whether you're an organization that provides counseling services or anything else, you should be consulting with disability sector groups about how you can bring them in and how you can service them better, right? So I think that's my big complaint is that, we don't consult enough. And so when we don't do that, then people are left out. They don't feel included and they don't feel like they belong.
That's a very important point there, Heather. Very important. Now, a very important question I have to get to now, though, is if someone wants to become a member or a volunteer, let's say there's someone who wants to be an ally out there, how do they get a hold of you? What do they do? Is there a 1-800 number, email? How do they become a volunteer or a member?
Yes. So you can go to our website. It's www.able2, so it's able and the number 2.org. You can find all the information you need there as well. You can give us a call at area code 613-761-9522, and you can reach someone through our line that way and talk to someone about our programs and services or volunteering as well.
Excellent. Lots of good information there. But Heather, unfortunately, we're out of time. Would you care to say goodbye to the folks at home?
I would, and I'd like to say thank you so much for letting me talk to you today and giving you the information. And I really enjoyed the conversation we had about how we can help in create and elevate the conversation about people with disabilities and be that advocate and champion. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Heather. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Heather Lacey, the Executive Director of Able2. And that's all the time we have this week, folks. I'm Sean Pickard. Until next time, bye for now.